and it was time, you know, I was mid to late 20s, got to get a real job now. I think I'd always had that bug in me. I'd always had that urge to explore and adventure. This changed plans a lot. And the cycle around the world turned into 6 weeks around Europe.
From Ministry of Work, welcome to Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds, the show about Greater Manchester's pioneers, entrepreneurs and visionaries, and the stories that brought their ideas to life. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and on today's show, I'm joined by Michelle Coulson, founder and CEO of Remote Rebellion, the platform helping people land remote work that aligns with their values and lifestyles. Michelle started her career in recruitment, working across London, Singapore and Australia. But when lockdown hit, she swapped her London flat for a motorhome and eventually for Bali. And when her boss called her back into the office, she said no and built a business instead. Remote Rebellion has now helped hundreds of people ditch their 9-to-5, find remote-first roles and design lives with more freedom, flexibility and purpose.
I grew up in Little Lever, in a little village in Bolton, in Greater Manchester. Now, when you hear village, you think of this picturesque little English countryside village. It wasn't like that.
Not that one.
Have you ever been?
I have, yeah, I know it quite
well.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up until I was about 11, 12. Parents were really hardworking. They worked in mental health, as nurses. My mum had about 2 or 3 jobs and raised us as well. So really hardworking, really grafted a lot. Got to about 11, 12, and they were going through a really hard time. We're about to divorce. And they thought, what's a good way to try and save our marriage? I know, we'll move to Spain and we'll buy a bar in the Costa del Sol.
Wow.
Having never had a business or run a bar. And my dad had a drink problem. So
That's a wild move.
Yes, it was. I asked them years later, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
My mum was like, well, your dad was going to be in the kitchen and I was going to be behind the bar. I'm like, you don't drink, you're 5 foot, you can't even reach the pumps. What? And they're obvious.
That's hilarious.
So after about a year, that didn't work out for obvious reasons.
Sure.
So we came back to the UK with nothing. Turns out our house got repossessed. Dad hadn't been paying the bills. Mum didn't handle any of the finances. So it was all, it was all left to my dad, and he didn't know what was going on. He tried to earn the money back, knowing that he got himself into some deep trouble. Ended up in an Austrian prison because he was driving stolen cars across borders.
Oh.
And if you met my dad, he was like a computer nerd. He's not the kind of tough guy that you'd imagine goes to an Austrian prison.
And how did all that affect you growing up? 'Cause obviously formative years, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big move to make when you've got friends at home and all that.
Yeah, and we went to a Spanish school as well, so we didn't speak a word of Spanish. So they basically dumped us at the back of this class, and the teachers weren't very nice. They just left us to listen. So all the kids didn't want to give us the time of day because they just thought they would just point and shout "giddy," which means foreigner, apparently. So they'd just be like, "Foreigner, foreigner." Yeah. And we just listened. So I can understand a lot of Spanish now, but I can't speak anything because every time I tried to speak, they would just laugh. As kids do, they don't know any different. So yeah, it was tough. Me and my sister, we were similar ages. There's 14 months between us. We had a really hard time adjusting because not just because we were moving to a different country. That bit I think we adjusted quite well to, but we didn't have any friends. We had one friend, and we didn't know what was going on. So we would work in the bar sometimes. We would skip school quite a lot. We completed Crash Bandicoot as a result. Very proud. Yeah, one of my highest achievements. So yeah, it was tough. And seeing my mum having had such a hard time and my dad having a really hard time, I think it showed us, that it was all sunshine and rainbows before that.
Yeah.
Literally up until the age of 11, it was Hallmark Christmases, all the family get together. We would go on skiing holidays, going to Florida. We had the picture perfect childhood. And then everything sort of blew up and it was really different.
And when you came back to the UK, then talk us through how life became the sort of new normal there.
There wasn't a new normal for years, actually. So we got back and I was about 2 months, I would have been about 12. So I was 2 months late to starting secondary school. So I was already...
Yes, that's hard in itself, right?
Yeah.
Actually playing catch.
Yeah, exactly. So that was difficult, but we had nothing. We didn't have a house. We didn't have any money. My mum started doing whatever she could to earn the money. She was cleaning houses. She got a scooter to get around. She was probably claiming benefits, even though she was working cash in hand. She was doing everything she could to make sure we had enough and we provided for. We were on free school meals, everything she could do to get us the most that she could, she did do. And we moved around a lot in that time. In the space of 2 years, we moved 9 times.
Wow.
All within like Bolton area because near to school. So we lived in some interesting houses. And the reason that we moved each time was different. One, it was in Little Eva, there was a shotgun under the bed that was found from the last tenants. One, the kitchen, there was no kitchen, and the landlord promised us a kitchen after we moved in after a month. That didn't happen. There was something different every time. It's like I'm making this. Some of my friends, like, if they didn't know me, they're like, "You sounds like you're making this stuff up." I was like, "I know." So yeah, it was tough for a few years.
Yeah. What was school like for you? Like, were you quite academic or not interested, or?
I don't know. I think I was somewhere in the middle. I was neither. It makes me wonder what I could have gone on to do academically if I hadn't have missed a whole year of school, because we weren't in school that whole year. So I would say I was really average. I would soak things up, but I wasn't really putting my all into things. Yeah. So school was just okay. I got into trouble a little bit, but nothing major. I felt like I never really fit in to Little Eva, to the school, friends. And I wasn't an outsider to other people, but internally I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. But I didn't know why. I just felt like it wasn't me.
Do you know why now, or do you think it was just a byproduct of the sort of childhood and the circumstances? Because there was a lot of changes when you were that age.
I honestly don't know, because I didn't feel it before we went to Spain. So maybe it was a case of my mind had been expanded, and Little Eva is one of those places you don't get out of. So maybe once I'd got out, I was like, oh, this feels like too small.
Because it is wild for an 11-year-old to go from somewhere like Little Eva to then in a Spanish school, working in a bar half the time when you probably meant to be at school and all that. That's quite the change.
Yeah, it was. So I think it was just, I don't belong here. The world is bigger. This is not me.
And what came next after school for you?
So I went to college, studied tourism. Then I never really knew what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to travel. There wasn't some big ambition. I was talking about working as a waitress in a bar in Spain. Like my ambitions were not big. I just knew I wanted to be outside of the UK. And I didn't really have a reason for that I could think of at the time. So I went to university, studied tourism, went to Leeds Met, so not the good one.
The same
one. And went and studied tourism. Main reason being I didn't want to get a job. I wasn't ready. I was never lazy. I worked at a golf club when I was like 14 up until whatever age. But I wasn't ready to work full time. So I studied for a bit and had the best time at university. It was just having fun, meeting lots of good people. But I couldn't tell you one thing I learned at uni, honestly, actually in the course. And I did a sandwich course so I could do an internship abroad. I worked in a country club in Florida, in Boca Raton for 3 months, worked on a campsite in Venice for 3 months, just basically cleaning tents. I was called a campsite courier, but it was much less glamorous. Yeah. Yes, it was basically glorified cleaner. And that opened up my mind as well, because I was 20 years old, working in this country club with these people who were paying. It was one of the most exclusive clubs in the whole state. These people were just horrible people. Like 200 members, and I liked 4 of them.
Wow. Why were they horrible? What?
Cliquey, service, looking down your nose. All the women were like stretched out to here, and all the men were having affairs. And they were just horrible people who had no intelligence. And I'm really generalizing here because
no, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Some of the questions they would ask, like there was a real international group of people, and I remember them asking this South African girl, and she said, "Oh, where are you from?" "South Africa." And she's like, "But you're white." And oh my God, like I just couldn't, like some of the questions they asked, this lovely Filipino guy was talking perfect English, whatever he was, "Get me someone who speaks English. I don't understand a word you're saying."
Wow.
And like his accent was like less strong than mine was back then. Yeah. Just, they didn't have a clue about the world. These people had way more money, way more experience than any of us did. As in years but they just didn't have a clue about the world. But I would wind them up and they didn't really understand the sarcasm. So they were like, oh, so you're from England. Do you know John Smith? I'm like, oh, yeah, John.
Yeah,
with the
Johnny.
hair,
Yeah, yeah.
So you just, and do you know the Queen? I'm like, yeah, we all go for dinner on Sundays. And
Yeah, just wind them up.
yeah.
So how did you get into the world of recruitment?
How did I get into the world of recruitment? It's a bit of a long story, if you've got
Yeah,
time.
go for it.
Ish. So after university, I travelled around, backpacked Southeast Asia, did the whole standard Australia and everything. And then afterwards, I got back. I was like, I need to get a real job now. So I worked at STA Travel. Do you remember them?
Mm-hmm.
Great company. Worked in the travel agency in Leeds on Vicar Lane.
Oh, yeah.
You might have come in,
Probably,
maybe.
yeah, probably did, yeah.
So I worked there for a little bit, and I ended up, I'm just trying to find the order of this. Yeah, so I was doing that for a little bit and then got to travel with them, and the inspiration for travel was still there. And I went to go and work on a yacht in France. Now, this is a longer version. So I remember I was going out with a lovely guy called Steve in London, and I dumped Steve because I was like, Steve, I need to save to go and cycle around the world. I'd met these people who had done it. I got the idea in my head. So I need to go and cycle around the world.
Yeah, sorry, Steve.
So poor Steve. I think he's married with kids now. I think he's doing all right.
Happy,
yeah. So I went to France, went to Antibes. I did my whole boat license. I was like, okay, I'm going to work on luxury yachts and I'm going to save loads of money. I'm going to cycle around the world. And a month in, I met someone and we fell madly in love. And our first date, I was supposed to go back at a certain time. The captain was going to come and pick me up on the tender boat. And I was like, I'll just not answer that. So I didn't answer it. The next day, he fired me and he's like, get off the boat. So I rang this guy I'd just met. I was like, hey, I know we've just met, but can I stay at yours?
We had a great first date,
yeah,
didn't
it was
we?
really good. Can I stay at yours? Because I've just been sacked and also my accommodation is on that boat. So we planned the rest of our lives together within a few days. It was mental. Like after poor Steve and I went out for 9 months and he was talking about moving in together, I'm like, oh no, commitment. So this changed plans a lot.
Yeah.
And the cycle around the world turned into 6 weeks around Europe. And we were planning, because he was very much working in insurance, ING, all of these big banks. He had his shit together. He was a serious man who works up the ranks. And, you know, this is how you live life. You get married, you have kids, and this is what you do. So I kind of let myself get swept along with that. And it was time, you know, I was mid to late 20s, got to get a real job now. And my friend said, why don't you work in recruitment? Like you can get really good money in recruitment. I was like, okay.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So I'll do that. I've never heard of that before, but I'll do that. And I started my first job in recruitment, in tech recruitment for an agency. I was really good at it. I was earning good money. I liked it. I liked the people I worked with. We had such a laugh. It was very much a boys' club back then. That was 2014. Yeah. But I grew up really close to my cousin, who was basically like my brother. So he was in the army. I grew up with all these squaddy mates. So I was kind of liked that kind of vibe. It was fun. It was tough and long hours. And the environment was, it was tough sometimes, but I really, really did enjoy it. So that's how I got into recruitment.
And where were you based then?
Oh, that was when I was in London. So when I met this guy in France, we decided to move to London and have our life in London together. Got you. Yeah. So that was how I got into recruitment.
And how did recruitment go / that relationship?
Yes. Oh yeah. So then I was at that company for about 4 or 5 years, decided to go in-house. Mm-hmm. And that's when I finally did the cycle through Europe. So I went from Montenegro to France. It was 5 or 6 weeks. He was supposed to come with me. He didn't. So I went on my own, which was really tough. I talked to my bike quite a lot. It was quite lonely after a few weeks.
Why didn't he go with you?
Work, this, that, excuse. And it made me, that cycle was one of the things that made me realize that the relationship was not going to continue. Yeah. Before that, we got engaged. We were about to get married. I had the wedding was booked, dress was bought, all the venue, everything. Sure. And then 2 months before the wedding, I was like, this is not the right thing. Like, this is not.
Big call. Yes.
He was basically drinking drugs. So that was really tough, but it forced me to realize what I wanted and how far I'd come from being me. I was no longer.
Well, especially if you've got one side, someone who's obviously more bothered about the job, also abusing the drink and the drugs. Yeah. Meanwhile, you're trying to do these life-changing, mind-opening experiences that it just doesn't tie. either of you changed along the way, or do you just not sort of recognise that, do you think?
It's a good question. I think I wasn't honouring who I was, and I let myself get brought into that because I was,
into the sort of societal norms.
Yeah, and status being important. I remember this Ralph Lauren handbag, and he'd bought it me for my birthday, and I said that it's what I wanted. And I remember looking at this handbag afterwards, like, I don't even like handbags. I don't like designer stuff. Like, this is really not me. I don't give a damn about status. But we were different in those ways. And he wasn't a bad person by any means, really, really good person. But he'd been brought up that way to be shown that these are important things. And I hadn't. And so it was very different in that way. So I don't think either of us changed. I think my eyes opened.
What was the sort of fallout from calling the wedding off, like with family and stuff? Were people like, holy shit, or was it sort of like, oh, it's Michelle?
Yeah, it's a good point. It was a holy shit, like, because he was from Australia, so like all his side of friends had booked their flights over to France. We were having it at his parents' house in France. So shame on the family, that. So it was really, really tough. It was like, and to go, especially when I was still in love with him and he was still in love with me, that wasn't the reason that we were ending, because we'd fallen out of love. So it was a real cheesy but head over heart situation. And it was the right decision, but it took years to get over. Like, it really did. So it was hard.
And so you went on the bike ride, but that helps you at least gain some clarity of thought. Yeah. Is that what sort of kickstarted then the travel that you do now, or what was the turning point for that?
I think I'd always had that bug in me. I'd always had that urge to explore and adventure. But that bike ride reignited, okay, this is me, this is what I enjoy doing. And I had the impression that you're not supposed to do that when you're in your late 20s, 30s. You're meant to settle down and grow up and do what everyone else does. And I used to always rebel against that, but I thought that was an immaturity thing. But it isn't. Like, I'm nearly 40 now.
You're perfectly entitled to do that. Yeah.
And I'm not skirting any kind of responsibilities because I don't really have any, because I chose not to have any. I chose not to have children. I chose not to get married yet. It's me that I have to look after. So as much as looking after my family around me, I don't have those responsibilities. So did that answer your question?
I think so. And you're still in recruitment at this point?
Yes, still in recruitment. I moved to in-house recruitment, which I really liked. I worked for a great company called Tiger Spike. They were an agency based, and they were an Australian company that had offices all over. So I got to work in Singapore for 2 months with them. Cool. Got to work in Sydney, Melbourne. It was really great company until a big American corporate bought them out. Everything changed. Yeah. We went from actually having autonomy to being able to call your boss a dickhead, to I'm a robot, I say yes to everyone. Yeah. And I could see even the CEO didn't have any power anymore. And I could see the writing was on the wall. That was about 2019. And 2019, I had a bit of a weird year. It was one of those years of trying everything. I bought a motorhome, lived in that for 3-4 months in the UK because we had to go to the office every Friday. I implemented a hybrid policy. I nagged for ages, for about a year trying to get this. So I thought, okay, I can buy a motorhome now, but I had to keep going back to the office every Friday. Yeah. So I'd just find outskirts of London that I could like park. Yeah, there's a place in Richmond that was a really nice spot, actually.
Okay. Good recommendation.
Yeah, it was good. So I had this flat in London that I'd bought 6 weeks after I ended the marriage because I had some money that we'd saved for the wedding and the mortgage. So I ended up buying this flat in Catford. It was a real on the whim kind of, I didn't obviously buy it outright, but I was buying this flat. I was like, I don't want to live here, and I didn't know why, and it was because I felt lonely, and that's why the motorhome seemed like a better option because I could travel around and see friends in Bristol and then I decided to go with still having the motorhome, decided to go and live in a co-living space in Acton near Shepherd's Bush. Didn't know what I was doing again. I was just doing things without thinking about them.
Why do you think?
I was lonely. I was really lonely. I wanted that sense of community. Even though I had friends in London, I felt like they were all moving out into the outskirts, getting married, getting houses. And it's not that I wanted that. I didn't want it, but I just didn't feel like I fit in.
It sets you apart, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I could really feel myself spiraling. And this was end of 2019. I'm pretty sure I got COVID in that December before it was a thing. I started the trend. And then COVID happened. And I was sat in this co-living space. It was March 2020. And I just was so miserable. I've never suffered from depression before, but I could feel like that was the way it was going. I was going into a really dark place and I didn't like where it was going. And I remember speaking to a friend and I said, like, he was in Bali at the time. I was like, what made you move to Bali? He's like, oh, it's my happy place. And it was literally one of those movie moments where I looked off into the distance wistfully and repeated happy place over and over, like, happy place. Where's my happy place? And the thoughts that came to mind all came around water, around surfing, diving, snorkeling, being on a boat. These were the moments I'd had the happiest. And I didn't think it at the time, but now reflecting back, it was community, being in uni, all being like in the same room together, going to the same club, or, it was, you were in the same group. So I pondered on it. And I remember going to a surf camp the year before in north of Spain and having the most, when they say you're in flow and you don't think about anything else. And being in the water, I remember crying on the last day because the surf instructor was trying to get us out of the water and the storm was coming down. I'm like, no, I don't want to go. Like a toddler trying to be told. So I got in my motorhome and I sorted out some accommodation in Newquay and I drove down to Newquay. It was like 24 hours later. Is it 24 hours later, that film? 28 days later?
Yeah, 28 days later, yeah.
On the motorway, no one on the road. It was lockdown. No one was allowed to move anywhere. And the police stopped me halfway. And you could see his face like, what are you doing? Like, it's a weekend before. He's like, there's a lockdown, right? There's a pandemic going on. And I said, I'm moving house. This is the guy I'm moving into. And he checked it all out, phoned ahead. And I said, look in the back. I've got all my boxes. I'm moving. So he looked in the back and he was like, there's not much stuff here. I was like, I'm minimalist.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of stuff.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I got down to Newquay and it was honestly the best thing I could have done. It was being by the sea, getting to watch like the sunsets at night. Like,
so you were in Newquay when it was like prime lockdown in terms of you couldn't do a lot, but at least you were by the sea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of looking out and seeing railway tracks and a building site, I thought I could just about see the sea from my window, like if I really stretched out the window.
Go one walk along the seafront and so on.
It made such a difference. And surfing almost every day. And I moved in with this girl, and we just bonded, and we'd go in the water every day. That and a podcast called The Happiness Lab. Honestly, that and the sea and Beth saved me from going into depression. I'm convinced. Really do.
And how did lockdown change what you did for work?
I was still working at Tiger Spike at the recruitment, doing recruitment for that internal company. It was a software development company, and I was just really, really grateful I still got to do that job because there was no hiring going on then. So I was just contacting people, or I was working on other projects. I was really grateful that I was doing that. And then it got to about April next year, April 2021, and I was like, we're still not going back to the office. Like, I'm going to make the most of this. And what my friend said resonated me, like reminded me again. He's like, why don't you come to Bali? I was like, well, I can't because of visa and because of, I think we had to do quarantine back then. It was like 7 or 10 days quarantine. So I just did it. I just found a way to get a visa. I booked a flight. I went and I told my boss, and he's like, okay, just so as long as you come back when the office opens up, that's all good. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't give him much of a choice. So I went and just had the best time. I was working 12 till 8 p.m. And then the mornings I was surfing, and I was in this guest house with these community of people who just were thinking differently than everyone back in the UK.
In what way? They
didn't. So for example, with you can't go to Bali because you need a visa and because you need that. That's what someone back home might have said, where they're like, well, you just do this and this, you just find a way. It's almost like the nonchalant, and this is the difference between people I hang out with now. They don't find barriers, they just find solutions. And I'm that way. I'm just knocking them down. I'm like, well, you just figure it out.
If you want to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I have no time for people who are naysayers and people who are blaming other people. The only thing you can do is what you can do, and you can find a way. Not even trying. You make a way to do it. So I did, and yeah, the people were just amazing. Like two Dutch guys, never done yoga in their life, hardly. And I can't remember what business they had, but they ended up buying this yoga retreat, a 16-bedroom yoga retreat in Ubud, and it's really successful. And then another guy set up this translation company. Someone else was no one really knew what he did, but he was definitely loaded.
Yeah.
Like he'd set up some business from Norway, and these people just did their own stuff and were free and just were, you could tell they were internally happy. They had some stuff they had to work through, doesn't everyone?
Sure,
But,
sure. But then interesting as well, like say working from say midday to 8 p.m, you still get your mornings, you still get your evenings. It's probably quite a nice way to work.
Yeah, I really liked it because I'm not really a night person. I'm a granny. I'm in bed by 9:30. So it gave me time to have my dinner and just unwind. And then I could just wake up and have my mornings so it was like the dream life. And I was pinching myself. I was like, can I really do this? I'm earning good money. I'm having the best life. I'm doing what I enjoy and I'm good at. And then the call came a couple of months later in like June, July. And my boss was like, okay, the office is open up. You know, you need to come back.
Right. Come back full time or?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I can't remember honestly, I can't remember which way around it was, but I had a flight booked and had to do a COVID test and it was positive and had no symptoms whatsoever. Absolutely no symptoms. I was in the best health I've ever been. I even did a second test because I didn't believe it. So I was like, that's a sign. So I can't remember if that happened before he told me to come back to the office. But anyway, I said I quit. I need to stay here. I can't go back.
Interesting. Do you think you'd have, if you hadn't have had that COVID, do you think you'd have got back on the plane and kind of resumed, not normal life as such? I know you were still travelling around a little bit at that point with the camper van and stuff, but would you have come back? And
I think I would have gone back for a couple of months, put my affairs in order and then gone back. But I remember having the conversation with the Bali crew and they're like, what do you need to go back for? And I was like, well, I need to do this. You can do that from here. And I'm like, oh yeah.
I guess
yeah.
I can. So did you know at that point then, so you've said, right, I quit, that what you were going to do?
No.
So what were you going to do?
Well, this was
what was going through your mind? Like, how are you going to feed yourself? And
yeah, this was the thing, because I had a mortgage to pay as well.
Oh shit. Yeah.
I honestly I just knew I'd figure it out. So it was 2021, recruitment had picked up quite a bit then. I just figured I'd get some freelance work and that's all I thought about. I didn't have a plan. It was like, I'll just pick up some freelance work. How hard can it be? But it was hard because they didn't understand. They were like, yeah, it's remote from the UK, but I'll work to the time zone. No, you need to be in the UK. So
but why?
They didn't. Jealousy is one of the reasons, I think, and some of them, they must think that you're in some shack without Wi-Fi and that you you got some like tinfoil like hat or something. So lack of understanding, control, power, like that's
as long
my
as you're
suspicion.
working the hours and speaking the right language and everything else, what's it matter?
So it was really a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. I really worked my butt off, and after a little while, I got 2 freelance gigs and they were remote first companies, one in Australia, one in Vietnam. And I was doing recruitment for them and also training one of their team in Asia on how to recruit. Really great Vietnamese team, like really loved doing that. And I was doing that for a little bit and thinking I could help people with their CVs. I could show people how to do that. Maybe that could be my side gig. And I was having all these ideas. I enlisted the help of this coach who turned out to be a really crappy coach.
Lots of those.
Oh, there's so many of them. And especially in Bali, like you've got 20-year-old life coaches that'll tell you how to live your life. And he turned out to be a bad coach. But one of the things he did say to me is like, he said, so what do you want to do? I want to do this, this and this. I want to help people to do what I've done and get remote work. He's like, oh, so a coach. And I'm like, because he was a bad one. That word really like didn't sit well with me. And I'm like, no. He's like, well, no, it is. And I was like, he's like, you could do that. And I was like, could I? So I'll thank him for that because he definitely gave me the idea. But only up until doing this NLP course last week would I feel comfortable, even after doing this for 4 years, calling myself a coach. Because I think it's such an important role. You can't just go around calling yourself a coach unless you actually know what that is. I was more of a mentor, but I couldn't call myself a mentor because you think about something free when, and it's a mentorship, right?
And so what was the core of the mentorship, shall we say? What was the core like? Did you help people do?
So this is what I quickly realised, that it was more about just having a good CV. It was really starting from the core of people not understanding or people never asking themselves what they actually want. Like, what is important to you? What are you good at? What do you like doing? And how can you bring all of these together? Like the ikigai, if you like, but going a little bit more surface level than that. If you're going out, and I relate it back to dating quite often because there's a lot of similarities. You go out on a date, you're like, I just want a boyfriend. Anyone will do. Like, you're not really going to attract the right kind of person, and vice versa for the job. If you're like, I just need a job, that might be the case, but why would they choose you? They want someone who's dedicated to this company, to this role, who has like, an interest or skill in something. So it's really getting to the core of what you want. And especially a lot of the North American clients I work with had never asked themselves this question, especially the older ones. They're like, what do you mean? Well, I'm good at this and I've done that and I've done that. I was like, that's not what I asked you. So they'd never asked themselves that question.
It's interesting. When I speak to sort of people who are starting businesses, I sort of say like, my question is normally my statement is normally build the business for the life you want.
Love that.
Because so many people get caught up in I want to make 100 million. Well, do you really? You want to work every hour God sends? Or do you actually want to have a nice work-life balance?
Yeah, I love that.
In which case you maybe only need to earn X, Y, or Z. So it's the same sort of sentiment,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And people build their life around their job and not the other way around. And it doesn't have to be that way, but society has told you have to pick one or the other.
Yeah, so I think that's the fascinating thing I think about what you do. It's trying to teach people that the societal norm doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. There is an alternative.
Yeah.
What sort of have you got any like really good sort of people who you're gonna you've massively changed the way they've thought and look what they're doing now compared to what they would have been doing?
Part of what I do, and most of what I do, isn't actually convincing people that they can live this life a different way. The people who come to me generally have decided and know that already. So they're like, just help me get there. And I'm better at that side of things. You know what you want, come to me and I'll practically work with you. Other people are better on the more emotional and eliciting what their goals and desires are. I'm much more on the pragmatic, right, let's make a plan, let's do this, let's do it step by step. And that figuring out what you want is just part of that. So let me think of some transformations. I mean, there's quite a lot to think of. And one is actually a friend of mine, and he was the one who was talking about Bali in the first place. So it's been in a really nice circle with him. He is Canadian, and he was in Bali at the time that I got there, and he was running out of his savings. He's like, I can't live off these savings anymore. Like, can you help me get something remote? And he was having to go back to Canada, go and work there for a little bit, and then come back and having to do that each time. So we worked with him. No, it was just me at the time, actually. I worked with him to help him on his CV, help him get something that is a role that he'd never done before, and show them in the interview why he's the right person. And I think he's had 2 pay rises since, he got 2 promotions, and now he's setting up his own business. So it's totally changed his life because he wasn't having to do that back and forth. He could stay in the relationship he was in and everything. Yeah, it was big.
And his life's there now.
Yeah.
And where's home for you
now? Right now, here in the UK. So I'm at my sister's. She's in Boovstown. I've been there for the last 2 months. But since I was in Bali for about 3 years, up until March last year, and I left because Bali's got this strange spirituality to it. And I'm not overly woo-woo, but honestly, it either calls you and brings you there or tells you, okay, it's time to leave now, with no real explanation. So last March, it told me it was time to leave. If I heard myself talk like this 5 years ago, I'd be like, you're nuts. But it told me to leave, and I did. The traffic was
the locals telling you?
Yeah, probably. I can get out now.
Yeah.
I was supported. Yeah. The traffic was definitely one aspect and one of the reasons I left. If we were thinking about it got really bad. The traffic was so mental, and it's got an influx of influencers, with like the vapid kind of influencers that are all about, this being placed in the perfect position before they eat it. And you got a bit tired of seeing that around you. The positive side of that is when you found your people, your crew, they seemed even more normal and great than these like crazy influencers dancing on this spiritual rock, So there are those people that exist, but there's also some really great people. So that told me it was time to leave. And I've just been traveling around for the last year and a bit, trying to find home. And haven't found it yet.
Interesting. What's it like, the kind of not having a, in inverted commas, home? Like, does it feel, I don't know, unsettling at all or not? Or actually, you've got quite a lot of comfort in not having that place you call home?
I'm torn on this question because it depends. So it really depends on where I'm at in my life at that stage. So at times it's felt freeing and it's felt invigorating and exciting. And at other times it has felt really unsettling. And at the minute, I'm in that stage where I shouted to my sister the other day, I was like, I just want an air fryer. I just want a home with an air fryer and some jars of food, because I really like foraging. So I'd really like to get to a point of like having jars of food that I foraged.
I bet she's like, good, get out there, go exactly. Get your own air fryer.
Yeah, exactly. So there's times I've really craved it, and times where I've enjoyed that freedom, especially when I had the flat in London. I've sold it now. I just wanted to get rid of it. It was quite freeing to just rid myself of things and complications.
Would you recommend it?
Would I recommend it? It depends to who. It really does. It depends what that person wants. Because with everything, right, you've got to sacrifice one thing over the other. And I am forever grateful for my sister and for my mum, because if I didn't have them to fall back on, I don't know if I would have taken that leap in quitting my job. Yeah. Like, they've never been the type to give handouts necessarily. I'm not like, oh, they'll just pay for this. But I knew if shit hit the fan.
Yeah, you've got somewhere to stay, right?
Yeah, I've got a roof over my head. I've got food on the table. It might be a room in my nephew's playroom, but like, I'm good with that. So I wonder if I'd have been able to do that if I didn't have that backup, which not many people have.
No.
And I think if people do have that, you can take more risks because you have that to fall back on. It's the exactly worst case scenario.
The ability to take risks.
Yeah.
Where would you like to see either yourself or the business go in the next sort of 2, 3, 4 years?
Where would I like to, or where will it go?
Yeah, both. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
In 5 years, my vision for Remote Rebellion is that it's the go-to place for people who want to find remote work and people who want to hire remotely. And the same way eBay was in the heyday 15 years ago, the only place you go to online to buy and sell, pretty much. That's my vision for Remote Rebellion.
Love that. That's Michelle Coulson, founder and CEO of Remote Rebellion. Thanks so much for listening to the show this week, and please do make sure to click the follow button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to check out Ministry of Work, where you can also sign up for a free trial day. This episode was produced, recorded and edited right here at Ministry of Work, with a special thanks to our studio manager Dan Brown and, of course, to you for listening. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and this has been Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds.